So I want you to just imagine a scenario for a second. It is, say, 2 o'clock in the morning. You are sound asleep.
Best time to be asleep, really.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And outside, the wind is just absolutely howling. Like maybe a severe squall is coming off the Gulf and it's rattling the windows. And then you hear it.
Boy.
Yeah. A sound literally nobody ever wants to hear in the dead of night. Just this massive, deafening crack.
Oh, man. I mean, it's the kind of sound you literally feel in your chest, you know? Like long before your brain even registers what just happened.
Exactly. So you jolt out of bed, you shine a flashlight out the window, and through the pouring rain you see it. The giant laurel oak that has shaded your driveway for decades is now just resting precariously against your roof.
Terrifying.
It is. Your heart is pounding. The adrenaline is just surging through you. You're instantly in this crisis mode, probably thinking about tarps, water damage, and figuring out exactly where your chainsaw is buried in the garage.
And see, that adrenaline rush, right? That overwhelming instinctual urge to just grab a tool, get out there in the dark, and fix it immediately.
Yeah.
It is incredibly common, and honestly, it is the absolute worst thing you can possibly do.
The worst.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in that moment of pure chaos, what you actually need is a highly calculated response. Grabbing a power tool and just wading into a post-storm debris field in the middle of the night is, well, it's a recipe for absolute disaster.
Which is exactly why we are jumping into this deep dive today.
Oh.
We actually got our hands on this really fascinating advisory from Tree Service Palmetto LFL.
Right. They're a great source for this.
Yeah, they're a professional risk management and extraction team operating right in the storm-prone coastal bend of Florida. But, this deep dive isn't just a guide to local yard cleanup.
No, not at all.
We are going to actually decode the hidden physics of falling trees. We want to uncover the invisible, often completely lethal dangers that are lurking in your yard long after the storm passes. And we'll break down exactly why grabbing that chainsaw could be a financially devastating or honestly, even a fatal mistake.
We really do need to rethink how we view storm damage as a whole. Because I think we tend to think of it as a singular event, right? The wind blows hard, the tree snaps, and boom, it's over. The threat has passed.
That's definitely how I always thought about it.
Right, but the reality of the physics at play is that a post-storm yard is actually an active, dynamic hazard zone. The danger doesn't magically stop just because the wind died down. The landscape is essentially holding its breath. It's storing up all this kinetic energy.
Wow, storing kinetic energy. Okay, well, to really grasp that danger, we actually have to start underground, I think.
Yes, down the dirt.
Right, because before we even talk about removing a fallen tree, we have to understand the mechanics of why they fall in the first place. And surprisingly, looking at the data from our source, the wind is really only half the story.
Yeah, the wind is, well, it's the most visible element, right? So it naturally gets all the blame. We see the branches whipping around, but it's actually the invisible combination of environmental factors that creates a true structural catastrophe.
Let's use the geography of Palmetto as our test case here.
Yeah.
Because according to NOAA data, this coastal bend region is just highly susceptible to rapid intensification wind events.
Oh, yeah, very intense storms, very quickly.
Exactly. But the real silent killer of these massive, 100-year-old trees is the water.
The water, yeah.
Yeah. The University of Florida IFACE extension points out that prolonged soil saturation is the actual true culprit. When you have an area near something like, say, the Manatee River, and it just gets dumped on by torrential rain for days on end, the ground doesn't just get wet. It fundamentally structurally changes.
Think about the biomechanics of a mature root system for a second. Because people often picture roots as these, giant iron spikes driven straight down into solid bedrock.
That's totally what I pictured, just massive spikes holding it down.
Right, but they aren't. They are a sprawling, super shallow network that relies entirely on friction. It relies on the cohesive structural integrity of the soil around them to hold up the immense towering weight of the tree.
Okay.
So when that soil becomes completely saturated, the microscopic friction between the dirt particles just vanishes. The water literally acts as a lubricant. The soil essentially liquefies.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second because that creates a genuinely terrifying mental image.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, imagine taking a giant, incredibly heavy iron lever and sticking it deep into a bowl of thick, wet oatmeal.
Wet oatmeal, that's a great visual.
Right. Because it genuinely doesn't matter how strong or healthy the iron lever itself is.
Yeah.
If the foundation holding it has completely liquefied into mush, the slightest lateral push is going to make the whole thing just topple over.
And let's actually add one more element to your oatmeal analogy.
Okay, lay it on me.
That iron lever also has a massive sail attached to the very top of it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a mature oak canopy acts exactly like a sail, catching all those high-velocity wind gusts. So you have this total loss of foundational friction at the base, combined with massive aerodynamic pressure pushing against the top.
That is a terrible combination.
It really is. The holding capacity of even the most robust, perfectly healthy root systems is drastically reduced to near zero. So, the failure isn't in the wood itself, the failure is in the soil.
And I think what makes this so incredibly dangerous for a homeowner is that this type of structural failure is often completely invisible. Like a massive tree does not have to snap in half to be fatally compromised.
Not at all.
Yeah, the source points out that people will walk outside after a gale, look at a pine tree that is leaning just, a few degrees, and they'll think, wow, what a survivor. It made it through the storm.
Oh, but it didn't survive at all.
Really?
Yeah, it is dead. It just literally hasn't hit the ground yet. Wow! Because wind-thrown timber in saturated soil often suffers from severe, catastrophic root tearing beneath the dirt. Half the root system might be snapped entirely, and the tree is essentially just balancing there, entirely unstable, just waiting for the next stiff breeze to finish the job.
Okay, so if the primary failure is underground and completely out of sight, what are the actual signs? Like, how is a homeowner supposed to know that the tree in their front yard is basically a ticking time bomb?
You have to train yourself to look for the subtle clues of biomechanical failure. One of the absolute biggest red flags is heaving soil at the base of the trunk.
Heaving soil. Okay.
Yeah. If you look at the ground and you see that the dirt is pushed up or cracked or kind of fractured on the side opposite to where the tree is leaning, you have a massive problem.
Because it's pulling up.
Exactly. That means the root plate has entirely failed. The tree has literally pried its own roots out of the earth.
It's lifting the ground up as it starts to tip over. Okay, that makes complete sense.
Okay.
But the source also mentions vertical cracks on the main trunk as a major warning sign. Which is wild, because I always assumed a cracked tree just meant like lightning struck it.
That's a super common misconception.
But the ISA notes that hurricane-force winds can literally twist a tree until it cracks.
Yes, it's a phenomenon called wind torsion.
Wind torsion.
Right. We generally think of wind as a straight line force, right? Just pushing directly against a flat surface. But severe storms are highly, highly chaotic. The wind swirls, it shifts directions violently, and it creates these massive rotational forces. And that twisting motion applies intense shear stress to the trunk.
So it's not just bending the tree back and forth, it's literally wringing it out like a wet towel.
That's exactly it, because wood fibers are essentially bundled together like millions of tiny straws. So when you twist that bundle hard enough, the lateral bonds between the fibers snap. Yeah, they separate from each other, creating those deep vertical cracks. And once those fibers separate, the structural integrity of that trunk drops to almost zero. It is an extreme hazard that requires an immediate professional assessment, simply because the tree has lost its ability to support its own weight.
And see, that unseen structural failure is exactly what sets the trap for the homeowner. Because the storm finally passes, the sun comes out, you walk outside and you see this leaning tree, or maybe a massive branch is completely blocking your driveway.
And you just want it gone.
Exactly. The adrenaline from the night before morphs into this need for action. You want your yard back to normal. So you head to the garage, you fire up the chainsaw, and you march out there to take care of it yourself.
And that casual march from the garage to the driveway is honestly where the worst tragedies happen.
Yeah.
OSHA consistently ranks tree care and removal as one of the most hazardous operations in the entire country. And keep in mind, those statistics largely reflect trained professionals working in perfect weather conditions.
Right. And now you're adding slippery, mud-caked ground, maybe sheer physical exhaustion from being up all night listening to the wind, and potentially tangled live power lines hidden somewhere in all that brush.
It's a nightmare scenario. Plus, you are dealing with a material that is completely loaded with unpredictable kinetic energy. The source dives into this concept of tension wood, and it is a biomechanical reality that catches so many well-meaning DIYers off guard.
Yeah, I was reading about tension wood in the source, and the way I understand it, it's basically acting like a giant loaded wooden spring, Because when a massive branch falls, it rarely just lays perfectly flat on the grass.
Right.
It gets tangled in other branches, or maybe it rests awkwardly across a ditch, or it's pinning down other trees. So the wood is under this immense unnatural pressure.
Exactly. Let's look at the physics of that bend for a second. When a heavy branch is bowed over something, the wood fibers on the inside of the curve are being aggressively compressed together. Meanwhile, the fibers on the outside of the curve are being violently stretched apart. So it is storing massive amounts of kinetic energy, literally just waiting for a release.
So when an untrained person walks up with a chainsaw and just starts, cutting into that branch, they are instantly altering that delicate balance of pressure.
And the release of that energy happens in a fraction of a second. I mean, if you cut into the compression side first, the wood will instantly pinch shut, trapping your chainsaw blade with thousands of pounds of force.
Which is terrifying on its own.
But if you cut the tension side incorrectly, the branch snaps and kicks back. We are talking about heavy timber moving way faster than human reaction time. It can kick up with enough force to shatter your jaw, break your ribs, or literally throw you backward with a running chainsaw still in your hands.
Okay, wait. I'm having a hard time buying this whole every cut is a death trap thing. Let me push back a bit.
Okay, go for it.
Let's say I'm looking at a relatively small branch. Like, it fell off the oak, it's maybe 3 inches thick, and it's just pinning down one of my azalea bushes. It doesn't look like 1,000 pounds of timber. Surely I can just take a little handsaw, snips the branch, free the bush, and be done with it, right?
I get why you'd think that, but it is incredibly deceptive, because tension scales in ways that just aren't intuitive to the human eye.
Really? Even a small branch?
Yes. The kinetic energy isn't just about the mass of the wood, it's about the force of the bend. Even a 3-inch branch, if it is bowed tightly under the weight of something else, acts as a high-tension whip.
Oh, a whip.
Exactly. When you sever it, that 3-inch piece of wood uncoils instantly. It can easily knock you unconscious or throw you way off balance. An untrained eye simply cannot accurately gauge the amount of potential energy stored in that bend, nor can they predict the exact trajectory the wood will take once that tension is broken.
Wow, that is incredibly sobering. You think you're just doing some light landscaping, but you're actually literally dismantling a loaded trap.
Yep. And the tension wood on the ground isn't even the only trap you have to worry about. You also have to look up.
Oh yeah, the canopy.
The source explicitly warns homeowners about widowmakers.
Which is probably the most terrifying industry term I've ever heard in my life.
It earned that name for a very good reason, unfortunately. Widowmakers are large, heavy, detached branches that have snapped off during the high winds of the storm, but they haven't actually fallen to the ground yet.
So they're just up there.
Yeah, they are suspended high up in the canopy, just kind of loosely tangled in the remaining healthy limbs.
So picture this. You're down on the ground, you're hyper-focused on trying to untangle a log with your saw, and right above your head is a 100-pound branch just hanging by a literal thread of bark.
Exactly. And it does not take much to bring it down.
Like another gust of wind.
A slight gust of wind, sure, or honestly, even just the subtle vibration from your chainsaw motor working on the trunk below, that vibration travels up the tree and literally shakes the canopy.
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah, that vibration is often enough to dislodge the widowmaker without a single second of warning. Gravity takes over, and it's just a silent drop straight down onto the person working below.
So we have invisible structural damage in the roots, we've got liquefied soil, loaded wooden springs waiting to snap back at us, and giant branches hovering silently above our heads.
It's a lot.
The physical danger of DIY removal is completely off the charts. But what really stood out to me in the source material is the downstream effect of all this. Let's say, by some miracle, you survive the yard work. The physical risk you take directly translates into a massive financial liability track.
Oh, absolutely. This is a crucial and honestly an often completely overlooked reality of post-storm cleanup. Homeowners are in such a frantic rush to get things back to normal that they just forget to consider their insurance policies.
Which is a huge mistake.
Huge. Standard homeowners insurance has very specific stipulations when it comes to structural damage and mitigation.
Right. Because the source points out that policies often strictly require a licensed contractor to mitigate further damage. So let's play this whole nightmare scenario out.
Okay, let's hear it.
You decide to save a few $100 by cutting that leaning pine tree yourself. You walk out there, you misjudge the tension in the wood like we just talked about, you make the cut, and the tree kicks. It twists unexpectedly, and instead of falling safely onto the grass, it crashes right through your living room window and destroys a huge section of your roof.
In that scenario, the insurance adjuster is going to look at the proximate cause of the damage. And when they see that the roof wasn't destroyed directly by the hurricane, but rather by your improper, unlicensed cutting techniques a day later,
They're not going to cover it, are they?
they have solid grounds to deny the claim entirely. They can legally cite homeowner negligence.
So what does this all mean? It is a brutal irony. In an attempt to save a little time and a couple $100 cleaning up your yard, you accidentally void your own safety net. You could literally bankrupt yourself by dropping a tree on your own house.
Which is exactly why FEMA gets heavily involved in this specific messaging after major weather events. They strongly advise utilizing qualified contractors for disaster debris removal.
It's not just a suggestion.
No, it's not just a polite suggestion to make your life easier. It is about ensuring strict compliance with local safety regulations and, honestly, fiercely protecting your insurance policies.
Okay, so if wading into a post-storm yard with a chainsaw is both physically dangerous and totally financially reckless, how did the professionals actually do it? Because clearly, fixing this level of chaos requires way more than just a couple of guys in a pickup truck with an axe.
Far from it, yeah. When you look at an operation like Tree Service Palmetto LFL, you are looking at a masterclass in highly specialized risk management. They do not view tree removal as landscaping.
What do they view it as?
They view it as a high-stakes engineering problem.
Right. Their philosophy in the source material is summed up perfectly. They say, we do not just cut wood, we manage risk.
And managing that risk starts with the assessment. They deploy ISA-certified arborists. These professionals actually understand the complex biomechanics of wind torsion and root failure that we've been talking about.
They're not just guessing.
No, they mathematically assess the tension, they calculate the weight distribution of the fallen timber, and they map out the stored kinetic energy before a single blade ever touches the bark.
And that calculation is what dictates the heavy equipment they bring in, right? For massive suspended oaks or precarious situations near a structure, they aren't just hacking off chunks and letting gravity pull them down to the lawn.
Oh no, that would be disastrous.
Right. They bring in heavy-duty cranes and advanced rigging, and here's where it gets really interesting. I actually want to dig into how this rigging works because it's completely brilliant.
He completely flips the traditional logic of cutting a tree.
Yes. Instead of cutting a massive branch and just letting it fall, they use thick straps and steel cables to secure the timber to the crane first. The crane operator applies upward tension, essentially taking the full weight of the branch.
They are holding it in pure suspension.
Exactly. It's almost like playing a massive high-stakes game of operation or like diffusing a bomb. You have to completely freeze the mechanism in place before you can safely cut the wire.
That is a fantastic way to look at it. You are freezing the kinetic energy. By taking the weight with the crane, they completely neutralize the tension wood. So when the arborist finally makes the cut, the branch doesn't snap or kick or fall.
It just floats there.
It just floats there. The crane has completely overridden gravity.
Then the crane smoothly lifts thousands of pounds of compromised timber up and away from the roof, swinging it safely to the street without ever disturbing the house, the driveway, or the remaining healthy trees underneath it. It removes all the unpredictability from the situation entirely.
And, beyond the physical extraction, a professional local service also manages the administrative nightmare of a post-storm cleanup. They understand the local environment of Manatee County, sure, but they also provide detailed, itemized reports specifically formatted for the insurance companies.
Which is huge for the homeowner.
It really is. It streamlines the entire claims process.
Plus, they're fully insured themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Carrying comprehensive liability and workers' comp. That is such a huge detail. If a freak accident does happen and a crane drops a log on your driveway, their insurance covers it.
It is a complete transfer of risk.
Yes. You are paying them to remove the physical hazard from your yard, yes. But you are also fundamentally paying them to remove the financial and legal liability from your own shoulders.
It's the ultimate peace of mind during what is usually a highly stressful time.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really cool bonus detail hidden in the FAQ of the source material. If you ask them, they won't just haul everything off to a landfill. They will actually process the large trunk into manageable rounds and leave them neatly stacked right there on your property.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they haul away all the dangerous brush and the widowmakers, but they leave you with perfectly sized pieces to use as seasoned winter firewood.
It's a really thoughtful touch. It turns a chaotic, incredibly stressful situation into a small, tangible benefit for the homeowner. But, it all circles back to their core philosophy, which is managing risk through precision, equipment, and actual expertise.
So bringing all of this together, Whether you live in the storm-battered coastal bend of Florida, or frankly anywhere else in the world that experiences high winds and heavy rain, the physics of saturated soil and tension wood do not change.
The mechanics of structural failure are totally universal. Gravity and kinetic energy work exactly the same everywhere.
Exactly. Being well-informed doesn't mean knowing how to expertly wield a chainsaw in the dark after a hurricane. It means understanding the invisible forces at play.
Yes.
It means recognizing that a waterlogged yard is a structurally compromised foundation, that a bent branch is a literal loaded weapon, and that saving a few dollars is never, ever worth risking your life or voiding your homeowner's insurance. It means knowing when to step back, put the tools away, and let the experts manage the risk.
It is entirely about respecting the immense power, the weight, and the stored energy of nature, even when a tree is just lying still on the ground.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today. Because we spend so much time and money meticulously designing our yards, right? We plant these majestic trees, viewing them as permanent, static pillars of strength that offer us shade and aesthetic beauty.
We really do.
We build our patios under them and we park our cars right next to them. But beneath the dirt, completely out of sight, they are in a constant, fragile, invisible tug-of-war with the earth. Which makes you wonder, are the landscaping choices we make for our aesthetic pleasure today actually setting us up for a dangerous structural failure during the next big storm?
It definitely changes how you look at the beautiful canopy over your roof.
It really, really does. Next time the wind starts howling at 2 a.m., you'll be picturing that giant iron lever and the wet oatmeal.